welcome everybody. My name is Lori Cohen. I'm the executive director of the Beagle Alliance. We have our family here, and I'll just let people in as we go along because this is kind of a different town hall. It's not us having a person we're learning from or, kind of a guest, so to speak. This is kind of more like a family sharing circle, I think. And if anyone else comes in, we'll just let them in. So I don't mind if you all unmute yourselves, like who cares? Just let's unmute and, be a family and talk over each other if that happens and just be normal. Oh my gosh. So Kathy, what's going on over there, Kathy?
Mary wants to be on camera after her debut Monday night on the news.
She's the hostess with the mostest. Would you agree?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
She was a star.
Oh, and that's Harley being grumpy. So I might need to mute from time to time just because
Okay.
it's a little grumpy, but
Okay. Well, so really, we're just here to chat casually about our experiences, right? And probably everyone here has more experience than I do. I don't have a research role in my home. So why don't we start with you, Kathy? Because between you and Mary, I don't know who's counting, but there's a lot of beagles going on over there.
well, I have 5 beagles. Which is a little bit crazy. And 2 of them are from animal testing. Mary is not. Mary was sort of a extreme abuse. She was abandoned, her and her friend Bliss, who might be camera shy. And she was pregnant and sick when got her heartworm, tick diseases, just all the things, and pregnant. But then we have Harley, who is 10 and a half now. And he was in a laboratory for 3.5 years. So we've had him going on 7 years in December. And he's kind of a quirky guy. Like when we first got him, he would sit in the corner, literally facing the corner with his head down. And when he was stressed out or when it was too much noise in the house, he would spin in circles. He still to this day has never really played with toys. Like we can probably count in seconds, not even minutes, how long we've seen him play. Like every once in a while he does a down dog and then he's like, oh my God, and then he walks off. Things like that. But he's great. Like it took a while to realize that Harley is perfectly happy. So it's more about kind of meeting him where he's at. He just wants a sunny spot to nap in, and he wants to go for a walk, but only out the door and to the right. He will not go to the left. And do not go down a street where you have to turn around. You have to plan your walk in a loop because he will also not turn around. So always to the right. We have the short loop, the medium loop, and the long loop, always to the right.
Interesting.
It's an interesting one. And it he puts the brakes on and completely kind of not really for Harley, he kind of freaks out no, oh my gosh, that is no, I cannot do that. So and then we have Simon, who was rescued when he was 7 months old from a laboratory, and he is 5.5 maybe now. Oh my gosh, he was so tiny and so skinny and I was actually there when he touched grass for the first time. That was my first experience. Mary, you don't get to be on camera.
No, maybe we want to see Mary.
We call her, I hope this is okay. We call her menopausal Mary. So, because ever since she got spayed, she's been really grumpy. She gets grumpy like that. So, plus a whole other variety of colorful names. Okay. The girls are all good. We have 3 girl beagles, and it's like girl drama all the time. It's ridiculous. But anyway, Simon. So Simon, like when we first brought him home,
Kathy, you have
he
you have a sorority house, basically.
I do. And they well here, I don't know if you can Sean say say hi. The girls are here's Bliss.
This has made it on camera.
Good girl. She's the one that came with Mary.
Kathy, talk about Bliss for a few minutes, because an
she's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And because I've not rescued, like I'm not an adopter of a beagle from research, but I'm an adopter of a who is a failed detection dog, and she's got her own host of PTSD and anxiety. So it's definitely not limited. Like these are special needs situations, and it's not to research, right? And Mary and Bliss were abandoned. We found them in the middle of, Mary probably knows, I can't remember which.
Indiana, Kentucky border.
Yeah. And then Bliss was traumatized.
Yeah. So Bliss and Mary came together, and Bliss, and she was, she's missing half of her ear. The people who found her, apparently it was just hanging by a little string of meat, I guess you could say, which, and it was just a mess. Bliss was and she did not have heartworm, but she had a couple tick diseases, and like her skin was infected. Like it was really bad. She was so terrified. She spent about the first 8 months in the back corner of my bed. She would not come out. Like I would try to take her, like I'd bring her out, and it was me carrying her, and I just sit in the grass with her in the front yard. And I just thought, well, I'm just gonna like sit here with her, a car goes by or a kid rides his bike by, but she couldn't even do that. Like everything was terrifying for her. So we just like kind of decided, okay, we need to just step back with her. And again, kind of like I've said with whichever other dog, it had to just kind of meet her where she was. So it was May through February, because they came to us the end of May, and it was like early March when we finally were able to get her outside on her own willingly to start taking her for a walk. And even that at first was just, every noise, like there's a basketball court down at the park, which is only like, a couple blocks away. But if somebody was dribbling their basketball, like she would freak out. Even in the house, like I've never realized how much noise I make until we had Bliss. Like I dropped something, or, like set something on the counter and it's loud, and she would like duck and run, and sometimes she'd piddle, just because everything was so scary. And now, I mean, we still see some things, but like Bliss, like her progress versus her trauma, is so different now. Like she's the goofiest, happiest little girl. Like she's just, she's amazing. Like for all the beagles, and people I think probably think like, the laboratory beagle stories are, they're so amazing. But I have to say, for us, with all the dogs that have come through this house, Bliss is probably the biggest comeback story we've ever had, that we've ever seen personally. Like it's incredible.
Kathy, I'm going to interrupt you for a minute. And I apologize, because this was in everybody unmute, but for just the background noise is causing a little bit of issues. So why don't we just mute, if you don't mind, because it's just the reverberation. So sorry about that. That was me saying everyone unmute and let's all talk over each other, but clearly that was the best idea. So sorry.
Yeah.
and we'll just
Yeah.
talk stories as we go along. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, and I don't want to take up all the time. I mean, I could talk this whole time if you want me to, but I know there's other people that have dogs that probably have great things
So
to share too.
yeah, so Kathy, just before I ask Mary to talk about all of her, I'm giving Mary the little heads up that I'm going to ask her to talk in a minute. But what do you think, like, if you were to have advice for somebody who wanted to foster or adopt a traumatized slash a dog from research, what would be the number one thing that you would say?
Be really patient, and every day can be different, and to meet them where they're at every day, sometimes every minute or hour. And even if they have 2 steps back, they're going to have 3 steps forward soon. So,
Awesome. Thank you. That's amazing.
and now I'll mute.
And now I'll mute. Yeah. So Mary, Mary has some stories too. And
Okay, I'll try that again.
the Beagles in the mix, etc. So Mary,
Yeah,
yeah, go for it, Mary.
just real quick. So we have 3 from animal testing, 3 beagles, 3 girls. 2 of them were from a laboratory in China, and they were about 10 years in the lab before they got out, and they were made blind. So they're 2 little blind beagles, and they're now coming up on 15, 16 years old. I've had them since 2018, and now couple of them, Maria is pretty much deaf too, so her world is pretty isolated now, deaf and blind. And Minnie's getting pretty deaf too. And then we have Hazel, who was laboratory rescue from 2020. She's about 9 years old now. And she's the one who had seizures and everything. She had a tumor on her pancreas, insulinoma, blah blah blah. So she's actually she had an operation, became diabetic. That went away, she got better, and then her cancer did come back, because it is pretty much a hallmark of that cancer that it will come back. And she's been on chemotherapy now, a protocol with prednisone and palladia, for way over a year, which is not normal, right? So she's a pretty big miracle of a beagle. So we have those 3, and then I have Hobbs, who is a beagle, probably has a little other stuff in him too, and he's from a really cruelty case situation out on the East Coast, where he was kept 4 years, cruel confinement for 4 years, and then we, as a rescue, we brought him over. And he's here at my house because nobody seems to want to adopt him. I haven't pushed hard. And then I have May, who's from China, and she's just a kind of sad case. There's a lot of anyway, she's not a laboratory rescue that we know of, but she has some major issues. She circles like something I've never seen before, like as fast as she possibly can for as long as she possibly can. And she's just got a lot of weird things, but she has a lot of medical too. She has her ears were so badly infected that we're still considering surgery to take her ear canals out, and she was left to suffer from dry eye for so long that it ruined one eye. So anyway, so yeah, I have 5, and right now I have another little 7-week-old puppy who's I think he's some kind, or she's some kind of a little pit bull that has a crushed skull, but she's doing really well. But anyway, she's in this little pen beside me. So so I have a full house. So I don't know. I think when you said patience, like, I am not a patient person, but man, my Minnie, my very first Beagle rescue laboratory dog, really forced me to understand and embrace patience. Because when you talk about peeing and pooping, like, this dog didn't pee or poop for the first 5 days we had her. I swear to God, I thought she'd explode. Her little tummy was just tight with it. She just wouldn't pee. And then wouldn't do it the yard for months. We always had to take her for a walk, but the walk was like set aside 2 hours, right? Because you'd be walking her And she'd remember, she's totally blind. She'd hear a noise, stop. And she's not going to go back to peeing. Like, you'd just get her, you'd be like, oh, she's going to pee. We can go home finally and maybe go to bed tonight. And then she'd hear some little noise. Boom, she's done. She's not going to pee. And she just wouldn't. She would just freaking hold it. It was really incredible what their bodies can do when they're so upset. So, yeah, I think mainly what I've learned is to just let them be. Like with May and her circling, I just let her be. I know a lot of people, they're pretty quick to give like CBD or like, get him in, let's get some trazodone, let's do this. I don't tend to do that. I really tend to just try to let them work it out. Try to keep it calm, not yell at them. I'm only human. There are some times when I'm like, oh my God, May, stop. But yeah, it's just a lot of patience and letting them move through it on their own. And like Minnie and Maria, they just Minnie was much more stressed. Maria's always been a pretty chill little girl, but and Hazel was totally shut down when we got her. She would be so scared of a sound that I would find her in a room and she wouldn't move for maybe 3 hours. Like, she was so weird. I shouldn't say weird, but like, you could not, she wouldn't even like focus. Like, she didn't even know you were there. She could be so scared of things. And we live right by Disney, so we get fireworks every night, right? We were like glad for the pandemic when they stopped, but she was scared every night. And now she still will go like, oh, I hear, fireworks or something, but she's not like that anymore. She doesn't sit in a room. She engages with us now. At first, like, she just didn't engage. She didn't come to you for pets or anything. You couldn't comfort her. There was nothing we did that would comfort her. She didn't look to us for comfort. It just took months and months and a long process to get her there. She wouldn't sleep on a bed. It was like she thought she didn't deserve comfort. She would just sleep on the floor. We'd put a blanket down. Nope, I'm not going to sleep on the blanket. Finally, it was just a gradual thing of, okay, now I'm going to sleep on a dog bed. And then all of a sudden she looked at the sofa one day, jumped up on the sofa. Now Hazel has one end of the sofa and you had better not mess with it. That is her end of the sofa. And she's there all the time. It's like just like she feels like a little queen, that she's got her space. So I can't say more than enough that patience is key. And not to try to mold them to what you think a dog's going to be. Just like, I would imagine, I don't have kids, but I have raised kids, that you can't, you're not like, you're not exactly what I expected, and you cannot make them be something other than they're not, right?
Yeah, that's such a good point, Mary. And we have actually had fosters, potential fosters, and people who are interested. And we have gotten the question, when will they be fixed, or when will they be cured? And never. I mean, not, and I don't want to say never as in they don't progress, but they really are just like us. It's a process, and they've
Right.
had trauma just like people have trauma, and it's a process, and there's no date that we can say, oh, they're going to be adjusted in exactly the 4 weeks that you have them during the foster period or whatever. They're all individual, and for some it takes years. And hey, Mary, just remind me, because like Sweet Hazel was the very first research dog from research, Beagle from research that I ever slept with. I was in California when we had that rescue, and Hazel had a seizure at the rescue, and we rushed her to the hospital, and she was actually given 6 months to live. And that was literally 2 years ago at this point, right, Mary? September, we're at that date.
3 years ago.
I was going to say, no, it must be 3 years.
Yep.
And so she really is a miracle beyond.
She
Beyond.
is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she sleeps with me every night.
Tell us there. Kathy, did you have your hand up?
Well, is it Anne had just asked, I know that every dog is different, but can you give us an idea of how long each of these issues were somewhat resolved. I was just typing actually a little bit, but
Hi, Anne.
so I was just like you were saying,
Hello.
it's a process, you know. I, I've had dogs that have improved and then had a setback, and some things are improved and some little quirks have never changed. But they're happy. Like I think the question too is like, regardless of where they're at with their trauma or lack of trauma, you know, as they go on, are they happy? Do you see that they feel safe and loved more so than anything else?
Yeah. Well, one thing I've noticed, like with Minnie and Maria, which kind of made us feel good, is that like they're very cautious, right? Because they're blind. So when they're walking by themselves, they're, especially Minnie, she's like super like, whoa, what's out there in the world? And she's super cautious. But when they're on a leash, they really move. Maria will almost run on a leash. And it's because I feel that she knows I won't let anything happen to her. She knows I have control of the leash. I'm not going to let her walk, you know, or run pell-mell into a tree. So little things like that. And before, when we first had them, Minnie and Maria are like that, right? And whenever there's any commotion or anything, they go to each other. Like you'll find them, they're side by side, boom, together. Right? You know, we don't know what's going on in here, and so we're going to be together. And they wouldn't like come to us, but over time, they finally would. You know, we became their source of security and everything. But that takes a real time, especially with Hazel. Hazel is at my side all the time. And I'm telling you, when we first got her, you acted like you felt like she didn't even know you existed. But I can't say time wise, and I will tell you this: some of them are never going to get housebroken.
Harley, 7 years in December, and I have potty pads in my bedroom.
Yeah,
And you know, sometimes he'll go outside, sometimes, but
just
we
don't
take
know.
that. I mean, but in the grand scheme of like his bladder schedule,
It's just
like he'll use a potty pad, and sometimes I'm like, oh my God, but I can't get upset with him because at least he acknowledges that there's a potty pad, you know, and he's like, I used it, even if he misses, he's still like, look, I tried, I got, you know, so yeah, I mean, there's some of them that don't potty train no
Hazel
matter
has so
what.
much anxiety. She'll go out. You can have her out for 30 minutes and she'll come in. And luckily, she always pees in the kitchen on the tile floor, which is, you know, lovely. But yeah, so we start getting breakfast or meal ready, and Hazel does laps around our center island. And I'm like, Hazel, you have to go out. I know you have to go out. And you could just beg her, but she's not going to go out. And then she's going to stop and pee, and you have to clean up the pee before you can go out. So there's a lot. Like, I realize when I'm like asking people and they're applying to adopt and everything, you can't possibly know what you're getting into. They're not going to get to be like other dogs. It's not, it just doesn't go that way.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
doesn't go that way. And they're not going to, they don't drop down into your household and magically just fit in and come running to you in the same way. And it's a disappointment, I think, for some people, because we all know that the whole dog world is we plunk ourselves down in front of a dog and they're so happy to see us and they're all about us, and it's just not that way, and we can't take it personally at all.
It's really meeting them where they're at
Right,
every day. It just,
yeah, I say that in general with regard to the charity and meeting people where they're at in terms of cruelty free and you know, making changes, etc. And it's true. It's just like humans. You, in order to have compassion and to make a difference, work together, you have to meet people where they're at, and you have to meet these guys where they're, else they're, it's going to be well, and I find too that our anxiety they take on our anxiety. So if we're anxious about it, then that just ups their anxiety as well. And so that's kind of the thing. And on that note, I have to tell you that for all the years that I did 12-hour shifts, was out of my house for 13 hours. Dogs did not pee in the house. I literally work from home and I'll go upstairs and my dogs peed in the house. I'm like, I'm home. I'm home. I'm here. It's like, why are all my rugs ruined? Anyway, that's, an aside. But I'm going to go, okay, so Charisse is probably one of our first adopters, foster and adopters. She adopted Copper, who is not from research, but was an abandonment situation. And now she was just over yesterday because her and James are fostering Otis, Kathy. So so she's got a lot on her hands too right now. So Charisse, do you want to you had some good comments today, just texting back and forth about how to have a story, and they always the story always unfolds for you about them as we go along.
It really does. Like my first Beagle came from a backyard breeder. Back when I was a baby dog owner, and I'm like, I want a dog, and I'm crazy enough to get a Beagle, right? And then a year after him, we adopted our first dog. And her name was Rogue. She was also a Beagle. Here's Copper. And every time I looked at her, she peed on the floor. Every single time.
She'd been abused by a woman.
So, but that's how I knew that she was abused by a woman, because it was me. It wasn't him.
That was safety.
He was her binky. Like, if anything went wrong, she went straight to him. But then he started driving truck. So he was gone for a week at a time. Well, where's she going to go for safety? That dog was throwing up for a week.
Wow.
In my bed, if she could manage it. So, I mean, she was naughty and she would get into everything. And, I'm not a big proponent of Cesar Millan, but there is one thing that he does say that I am a strong believer in as well, is your dogs reflect your energy. So if you are upset, they're going to get anxious. If you are happy, they're happy. If, whatever your intense emotion is at that time, they're going to feed off of that. And, I didn't know it at the time, but I have ADHD. So that means that my ability to regulate my emotions isn't always where it should be. But they have taught me that, because every time I was feeling something, they reflected it back. So when Daisy came, Titan came next. He was a little different. He came to us through the Manitoba Basset Rescue. Somebody came to the rescue going, we have as people mix up Beagles and Bassets, but at least they went to a hound rescue. And so Trina called me and she's like, instead of just bringing this dog into rescue, why don't you go meet the owner and see if him and Rogue will get along well? Because Porthos had
passed away.
Porthos had passed away from kidney disease. And so we went to Kildonan Park and to they have this off-leash dog park there, but heaven help you if you let a Beagle off leash, you will never see them again. But yeah, we took him home that day. That was over 5 years ago now. He now has a lymphoma diagnosis. We just found out last week. But I could tell without even talking to the guy, the guy had told me they had a child, like a young child. But I could tell you that child was a girl, because Titan was always looking at the little girls, 3 to 4 years old. He was always looking for them. Like, is that my girl? Is that my girl? And then Daisy came to us last year in spring. She was a situation where her owners, there was a dog bite incident from her sister, and they shot the sister. And somebody contacted the rescue about her, and so the rescue went in and took her, because otherwise she would have been next. And I mean, otherwise she's there's that country mentality that, you know, there's no understanding of the animal. There's black and white. They can be a great animal, but you have one mishap and they're forever a bite dog. Now you're gonna just done. But she loves children, all the children. We have kids across the street. When we go for walks and the kids are out, she has to go say hi. We cannot start our walk until Daisy's had a chance to say hi to the kids.
So Charisse, do you, so I mean, it really just goes to show how they do carry the trauma and the memories, whether they are good or bad, right? Like they really,
Yeah.
and just like people, they're individuals. So of course and that's basically explaining why it's a process and it's different for every dog, the same as it is every person. So so you guys have had a lot, I mean, you're obviously rescuing traumatized animals. How did you get through it? And again, I'll ask kind of the same question that I asked Kathy, like what would you say to somebody? Because of course the Beagle Alliance is focusing on, you know, research animals and research beagles, but of course the trauma comes from hunting dogs from.
Can I actually say something on this?
Sure.
Go.
I ended up having a severe incident about almost 4 years ago now, and that gave me PTSD. And something that I have seen in the reactions over the past 24 hours that we've had Otis is that basically he has PTSD. The being so jumpy with the slightest noise or sound, movement, and so forth. So I'm kind of taking in the direction that I understand somewhat of what his reactions are going to be to what is happening around him. Mm-hmm. And understanding PTSD is basically something I've seen that would be a very beneficial aspect in helping these dogs to slowly become a beagle again.
I've also found I have to manage my expectations, because, you know, if I wanted a dog that was going to listen to every command and be well adjusted and, you know, from good genetics and all these things, I would find a reputable breeder and I would hire a trainer and I wouldn't have a beagle.
I was going to say, first off, you wouldn't have a beagle if you wanted any dog to listen.
You know, I'd have like a retriever or a lab, or, you know, those dogs that are, you know, they have a reputation for being able to actually use their ears for more than just decoration. And, you know, leaving room for the dog to tell you where they're comfortable. Because today we're watching the news, and most of the day Otis has been in the bed that he has chosen for himself. We make several available because, you know, different distances. Some are in corners, some are in the kennel. But every time he was curious because he heard voices that weren't ours. Mm-hmm. But then every time there was movement on the TV, he would like get very, very nervous. And I finally said, we have to turn the TV off because it's too much for him right now. I'm watching him. He can't rest.
Mhm.
He's jumping. Maybe in a week, a month, we can watch TV again. But for now, we can't. Thank goodness he can't do stairs at this point. So if I take him upstairs, he's not going to try and find his way downstairs. So James can still watch TV.
Well, okay. So before I'm gonna talk to you, Mandy, in a minute, but that's interesting that you said that, because Bethany just joined and she had the same problem, and her husband Ty didn't watch TV for like 2 months. I don't know. It was a crazy, or they were just on their phones because I'll let Bethany tell you the story when we get to Bethany's story. But Charisse, can you get some dogs in the screen before we talk to Mandy?
Let's see here. We've got
This is Copper.
Copper's there with Dave.
Art.
This is Daisy.
And let's see if we can get
Oh, so
The old man down here.
yeah.
Tilt it down a little bit further. Here's the old man Titan. He is 16 years old.
He's a grumpy old man, but he is so sweet and so gentle.
And Otis now is 1 day into foster.
Yeah, there is a kennel in our bedroom that he has chosen for his space up here. And so I'm not going to bother him right now. We'll just let him rest for a bit.
Very cool. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, before I talk to Mandy, Mary, who's the celeb? There's the celeb right there.
Sorry, when you said, I'm like, oh, I didn't even show off my girl.
Oh, we missed
I
out.
should have to be careful when I say that. It's me. This is Minnie.
It's Minnie, the celebrity.
Yeah, she's the OG.
Minnie
She
has,
knows it.
for just so you guys want, in case you guys want to look on Instagram, Minnie has her own Instagram page.
Minnie, the little blind beagle.
Look at her.
Oh.
So Mandy, I stories too, and just sends us the best videos ever. So Mandy adopted. He is possibly one of the most famous girls I've ever heard of, ever. I have no comprehension how Mandy has done this. So, and Murphy is an Beagle breeding facility survivor. So Murphy came from the Invigo breeding. He was one of the dogs that we were able to rehome from Invigo with the help of Age to Coach, actually. So yeah, so go ahead, Mandy, fill us in on how magically have gotten Murphy to run off leash somehow and come.
I really don't know this. So this is Murphy.
Yeah, that's Murphy.
He's sleeping because he did his huge walk and squeaky ball earlier. So he's comatose right now. He's ran himself into oblivion. I don't know. Hearing all these other stories, I really just think that Murphy's like a magic dog. Like we didn't do anything different than anybody else did. We just kind of I don't want to say we didn't allow him to be anxious, because we definitely did, and we were really patient with him. Yeah. But we just tried not to let it limit him, right? So if we went to do something, we just would see if he was open to coming with us, and most of the time he was open to coming with us. Like, it was this, he's really hyper bonded to me, which my husband calls him the shadow dog, because wherever I am, he's literally right beside me the entire day, because I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I'm sure that helps. He's not really ever alone. And we just kind of saw, yeah, we just saw what he could do, and we just started gently training him. Like he's so food motivated that he will do anything for a carrot or a piece of apple. So we just tried to train him, and we got him to sit, and then we taught him to roo. We call it roo, and then he'll howl, and we'll give him a piece of carrot. And one day he was out with us, and he somehow Houdini'd out of his harness and just took off. And I was like, okay, it's an excited takeoff. So we're just gonna see.
Because Murphy thought he was like off leash with
Yeah,
the big leash.
he thought he was going for a walk on his big long leash. So he ran ahead of us. And then I was like, okay, well, don't chase him, because then it's going to be game on and we'll never get him back. So I just turned around and walked away. And it was hilarious. He like looked and was like, Mom's gone, and just like came running back to me. And then we figured, if he can Houdini out of that harness and his little slip collar, we need to start having a recall with him. So we just took him, and my sons would hold the leash, and then I would go ahead of him and have a treat, and I'd say like, here, and he would run to us, and then we'd go a little further, a little further, a little further, and then we have like a back pathway that's by our house that is fenced, but it's very, very big. And we just slowly tried, and he's just this amazing dog. He was kind of like, okay, I'll come back. Sweet, let's do it. And now he comes on command. Like today we were out playing fetch in the same off leash, and a rabbit darted out, and he kind of like started to go. And I went, Murphy, here. And he ran right back to me. So he was just like, I don't understand why he's as good as what he is, but he's a good boy. Like he only had probably, I would say maybe 4 or 5 accidents, like potty accidents, in the first maybe 2 weeks that we've had him. And now he knows, like he sleeps through the night. He doesn't pee on the floor. He goes out for his bathroom breaks, and he's really, really good. He loves his life. He's just a happy little guy. Yeah.
And so Mandy, tell us a little bit for a moment about, because this is a common question too, is because sometimes these guys have never really had a home. They've never had toys. They've never had a person. So we will on occasion find that there's resource guarding, which means that they're protective over one person or protective over food. And they don't become for the most part, they don't become overly aggressive. I'd say Mary and I would probably agree they don't, but there'll be a little bit of growling, and there might be some teeth, something to say, okay, yeah, mine, right? And so we work with people, with that, where we have everyone in the family feeding and everyone sharing the walks, etc. So they don't get overly attached to one person. But the vacation point always, well, on occasion comes up, right? Because people now want to go on vacation, and there's a traumatized dog in the mix, and who do I leave them with, and where do I go? And we just had this conversation, Mandy, a little while ago. And so how did that all work out?
So we are actually going to Disneyland in 2 weeks. And so we were like, what are we going to do with Murphy? Because we've only been away from him for 3 days before, in the year that we've had him. And we actually just had a neighbor at that time come in and walk him on his regular schedule. He got to stay in our house. But we thought, he's such, I want to say like, not a miracle dog. They're all miracle dogs, but he's so good with everything else that we were kind of like, should we try boarding him for the week? Like, I didn't want him to be in the house and be anxious that we weren't coming home. So we chatted about it, and you're like, give him a try in a kennel or a boarding facility, because my brother-in-law had, highly recommended. It's kind of like a country acreage. It's like sending the dog to the farm, but you're literally sending them to the farm. And so we took Murphy for a tour, and that was the first time I've ever really seen him like revert to that fear that he had the first couple days that we had him. He just, the barking of the other dogs, and the kind of group setting, I'll say, you just could see him shrink in on himself, and he put his feet in the dirt and was kind of like, nope. And the owner of the facility is like, go for a little drive and see what he'll do with me in the 10 minutes that you're gone, and then come back and we'll see if it's a possibility. And he's such a good boy. I'm getting a little emotional because we drove away and I'm watching him in the rear view mirror and he's just like, well, mom left. That's it. I live here now. And he just kind of resigned himself and followed this other stranger in. And when I came back, he just went ballistic. It was like, mom's back. This is the best thing in the world. But he showed us that that was his boundary. He did not want to go in there. And when we brought him home, he was actually scared to go outside for pretty much the rest of that day.
It was like a repeat when we got him.
Yeah, and he was a little nervous to go outside, and we kind of had to build up that trust with him again. And it took about, I would say, 2 or 3 days to build up that trust that he's like, no, mom, I set a boundary. This one's a hard no. So either figure it out or don't go to California. And so we were like, okay, that's fair. We have to be respectful of what he's been through and the leaps and bounds that he's made as a dog. And we like to joke that he's like full dog now. He's the full doggo because he does everything.
Cool stuff.
Yeah, he does all the cool stuff that most dogs would do. This one was a hard boundary for him that he was like, no, I'd rather stay in my house and have somebody come and take me for a walk a couple times a day than go to this kind of facility type environment. So we just had to be respectful of that.
It makes sense because one of the problems within Vigo, one of the things I got cited for was the cacophony of noise. Like it was just terrible. And so I think that's why a lot of them too react to every little sound. So they've gotten out of that, that nonstop huge noise and they go into a house. So every little noise is like, what the heck is that? What the heck is that? So it totally makes sense that he was just like, oh my God, they've just taken me back to what I was saved from. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly. And it was definitely the dog's barking that triggered him
I'm
the most.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the lady at the boarding place was like, this is actually a quiet day. There's only 5 or 6 dogs here right now. So I don't think I mean, if we had to, he could have done it because he's a sweetheart, but I don't think there's ever a have to. I think it's kind of my job to make sure that we make accommodations for him and that he wasn't got as a puppy from a breeder that, had no PTSD. That's not respectful for him and what he's been through. So we work around him now.
Well, and that's a trigger for him. And we talk about triggers all the time and how they're different. They do reflect where they came from. And just as Mary said, the sound was an issue. And so we are always, saying to potential fosters and adopters, just, watch for how they act. We're not saying that you can't crate them. We're just saying if they don't want to go in the crate, maybe leave the door open, maybe the crate over in the corner with the door open and they'll go in, have a safe space for them. But maybe the locking of them into a closed space is going to be a trigger, or hallways are a trigger. So we're always kind of looking for those triggers just so that there's no reverting back, or you can sort of navigate it a little bit better.
And don't get me wrong, like when I say that, Murphy is this wonderful dog and he's made these leaps and bounds, he has. But when we first got him, it took quite a bit of work and quite a bit of time to get him to the point where he is now. When we first got him, I remember, and it's hard to remember now because I see him kind of as the dog he is now, where he's just, sleeping and completely chill
Like
and,
that.
He's happy with everything that's going on. But when we first got him, he would happily go for walks. And then and it was exactly, I forget who said, but in the loop to the right, that was exactly what he was like. He wouldn't go, he wouldn't turn back.
He wouldn't go like
that's right.
This, like go back the same way.
But I remember having, the first couple days we had him, we had to pick him up and carry him across the street and carry him through the threshold of our door. Like the doorways were a huge trigger for him. My husband and him are they're finding their footing because he's 6'3" and very tall and very big. And Murphy's like, nope, I'll handle you if mom's there for comfort, but other than that, we just keep our distance because clearly there was probably more men at the facility than there were women, unfortunately. And so he's, you know, he has had his triggers and he's had his moments, and we just kind of work through them within his comfort zone.
Should we show him?
The men common trigger. Oh, and he's like so happy sleeping. But I don't think I just wanted to see his face.
Let's see if we can wake him.
Thank you guys. That was awesome. There he is.
Oh, there he is. Hi, buddy.
So sweet.
Who's a good dog? Oh, big yawns. I know. I'm sorry. Sweetie.
So
He's like, Mom, you woke me.
thank you guys so much. And I just, yeah, I love hearing from you guys. So I see that Connie and Bethany are talking back and forth in the chat. So I'm gonna ask Connie and Bethany both. So Bethany fostered Astro, who was the rescue that we did in July, and Connie adopted Astro. So he came with me to Toronto when we went to the conference in August, and I met Connie at the airport, and that's where she met Astro. But I think it's interesting, Connie, that you have experience with rescue beagles, but Astro has different, it's a little bit different.
I'd like to correct though with that. Ty more so fostered Astro. I work a lot, so Ty spent the entire summer with him. But he's sitting over here, so I saw his face. He's like, "You didn't foster him, I did."
I didn't want to take away from. Thank you.
Of course.
How are things going, Connie? What have you learned so far about Astro and his triggers and how he's doing?
Yeah, well, here, I don't know if you can see. Here they are. They're sleeping on the sofa right now. So Astro is the one with the blaze, and the other one is bumper cars. And bumper cars came from the streets of Detroit. So I don't know how he ended up there because it's all pit bulls in Detroit. But he was in the city pound, and I saw him on the internet. He was the only beagle. And our other beagle was still alive. We lost 2 senior beagles this summer. One was 19 and one was 16. So we got Bumper, and then it wasn't too long after that we got Astro. And I'm so grateful because having another beagle in the household, it's like Astro trusted Bumper right away. And they started with the bitey face and, running around. They do zoomies. It took them a couple of weeks to get to that, but it's unbelievable how much help it is to have another dog in the household. The thing I wrote Bethany, the thing that is strange, well, not strange, nothing is strange, but he is still frightened of my husband. And I didn't know whether this was common that they would be, could that mean that he was maybe treated by more men than women, or does anyone have an idea of that?
Well, that's really common. Mary and I know, we've heard this for years, that this is a very common statement that we hear.
Okay.
Yeah, that men are a trigger for them, or they're afraid, and it sometimes takes a while. And as Mandy said, they have their boundaries, and this is a year already, and so, yeah.
We actually had the opposite experience with Astro. Astro was scared of me, but he loved my husband. And I think it's just who spent more time with him really seemed to be what it was. So if you're spending more time with him, it took a lot with him. Like right at the end, right before he was to go to you, and we're so thankful. I started crying when you said that. Shut the video, by the way. Right before he went to you, he finally, oh my God.
Oh,
it's so hard sometimes. Oh, sorry. He finally started to get excited to see me. So when I get home from work, he started getting like the little tippy taps. I still couldn't bend down and like pet him, but it took 2 months to get there.
Yeah.
Like it took from the day we picked, or so I guess a month and a half, from the day we picked him up to that, for
Yeah.
him just to acknowledge my presence. Like I'd have to sit next to him on the couch with a treat in my hand and just leave my hand there, and he'd eventually sniff it, and then I knew that I could pet him a little bit. But it took he's very, very traumatized out of all the ones that I fostered.
Yeah.
So far, he's definitely been our most challenged, but he loved Ty. Like it, so I think it's just who spends
It's
time
the
with him.
opposite. Yeah, it's the opposite with
Yeah.
us. And I've spent much more time with him. He's very attached to me. But he does see Bumper is very attached to my husband. He's attached to both of us. So he sees him interacting with my husband, which I think will help, you know,
Yep.
because he'll say, well, it's okay with Bumper, you know.
Well, we have two here, two beagles, and I have my one that got me into rescuing. And he would follow a dog around. If the dogs approached me, then he would come and then I could pet him. But he had to come in the group. He couldn't just walk up to me on his own. And I'm not home very much. I work a lot. And so for him, I was scary because he had to get used to me every single day over again.
Okay, well, thank you for that, because that's
Yeah.
really everything else is expected. His fear of noises, he would not walk on a leash. He's starting a little bit to walk on a leash if he follows Bumper down the driveway. All of those things I expected, the potty training and all of this, but my husband, like, his feelings were hurt because it's like he doesn't like me. So I'm recording this for him. My husband's out of town, so he can watch this. This will make him feel so much better.
Well, and Connie, we've interacted on Facebook and stuff. Feel free to
Yes.
add me and reach out if you want. Like, we're more than happy to
Oh,
tell you
thank
about our
you.
experience and all the stuff that we had for him and what we found was working really well and what wasn't. He's
Okay.
very truth picky, so
Yeah.
that's one thing that.
Sorry, guys. I just want to add too that's
Yeah.
why we're trying to get it going a little bit more, but obviously we're just clearly getting, more fosters and adopters as we go along. But certainly use the foster and adopter private Facebook group to talk among, to share these things, because that's exactly, along with sharing photos and how things are going and just sharing our lives with these guys. Part of it is there as a resource. So please go ahead and do that, because then others who continue to join could always go back and have those to look back at. But yeah, Connie, tell Martin it's all good. It's a
Okay.
thing.
I will. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm so grateful for all that you are sharing. Everybody. This is really a great help. So,
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for giving Astro an amazing home. And same with you, Bethany. And I'll kind of, well, Bethany, you're going to put some dogs in the camera, I hope. But so Bethany as well was picked up along with Charisse yesterday. We all met because Bethany and Ty are also fostering. Get some dogs there, Beth.
Okay, well, I'll tell you guys my little story. So I started by rescuing my big boy in 2014. He got me into loving rescues. And then Ty had always wanted a beagle. And we had a family dog he was about 14 and he broke his hip and he needed constant care. So he went back to live with my sister. And Barkley stopped peeing. He stopped pooping. He stopped eating. And it went on for about 2 weeks. And we just said, okay, time to get another dog. So that Valentine's Day, I got Tyler his baby Freya, who's a little tired. So Freya got us into the Beagles. We bought our house in March of 2022, and we said, oh, we should get a cat. So then we found a Beagle who needed a really good home. She had been used as a breeding dog. And so then we got our Tana. Tana has had a lot of problems. We had a couple fights. I don't know if you can see my giant scar there. That was breaking up a food fight. between the two. What helped there was feeding them on separate ends of the room and sometimes in different rooms. And honestly, getting Tana fixed is what really helped. A lot of that aggression stopped with getting her fixed. A friend of mine mentioned they wanted to adopt a Beagle. So again, I went on Kijiji and found a Beagle in a bad home and bad situation. And we found Leia, who was recently adopted. We tried to rehome her on our own, and she came back to us twice. And oh, my buddy. I see Connie got Astro, my heart. So we had Leia for 2.5, almost 3 months.
Wow.
And that was a really hard one. Sorry. I love fostering, but like the pain sometimes after is the worst.
Fosters
So-
are special creatures, because I don't know how fosters do it. I say that all the time. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, Beth, but
No.
there's a special world in the world of a foster's heart that, you know, foster and then give up the dog for something, you know, for them to go on to live in a forever home. It's pretty special.
You know, we never said we'd have 3. We definitely couldn't handle 4. And we loved Leia. She really got us involved with you guys, and it's been fantastic. I'll let Ty talk about Bandit and Astro, because like I said, I manage 3 branches. I'm not home. I sometimes work 12-hour days. It's just crazy. But Ty is a teacher, so he was home all summer with Bandit and Astro. So I'll switch with you.
Yeah. So with Bandit and Astro, like out since I was home for 2 months, Astro took a lot more time to warm up. You could totally tell he was so much worse off. I slept on an air mattress in our spare room the entire 2 months. I never slept on the bed, so Bethany had the bed with our 2 girls and our big guy. And because we tried Bethany once in the spare room, and Bandit would not sleep. He just could not get over the fact I wasn't there. So I did the me thing where it's like, okay, I'll sleep in the spare room in the uncomfy bed. And after about 2 weeks, Bandit started cuddling up with me.
No, Bandit was cuddling up with you within a week.
Oh, okay. Because it's like right away it was like first they slept together in the far corner of the air mattress. They wouldn't come near me. They would just watch me. And
they had kennels and beds in there too. Like they could have gone into their own area. They chose to be on the air mattress. Our spare room's pretty big. It could fit like 2 king size beds plus at least a twin beside it as well. So they had lots of space. They could have left. They wanted his attention, but they didn't know how to ask for it. It would be the best way. So
and after that week, it was Bandit was needed to cuddle right up against me, and Astro stayed in his corner for about another week.
On his pillow.
No, the pillow came after. Because after we put him in the kennel, we found out because his bed was dirty, so I put one of our spare pillows that we use when guests come over, and he loved the pillow. So it's like, hey, I'm like, we'll just leave that on the air mattress for him. And he slept on that, but he preferred it always in the corner. I tried moving it closer to me. No, he wanted right in that corner. So Bandit always was with me, curled up, Astro on his pillow. Bandit was my shadow. Everywhere I went, Bandit had to follow me. He had to be in that room. Astro was very hesitant. He wanted to be where Bandit was, but when he saw it was with me, it was kind of like, okay, if I'm not moving, it's okay to be there. But as soon as I try to get up or I reposition myself, Astro quickly runs away, goes to the other side of the room, watches, kind of nervous like, and then he sees that Bandit's not moving. And if I'm go back to being calm, Astro would come back over, lay right next to that Bandit, and just kind of watch me for a little bit, and then kind of cozy up with Bandit. But
I want to touch on that actually, Ty, because we have people, and we have about 13 minutes left, and I want to see if anyone has questions. And Carla just joined us, and she has Bishop in front of us, so I want to have a chance to chat with Carla for a minute too. But I want to touch on that's Nick in Bethany's camera there, you guys. So he was just rescued yesterday, the last 2 days. If you've been following us, our most recent rescue. So, but I wanted to touch on the fact that we do have many fantastic applications come in that the people have lost a dog, or they simply don't have another dog in the home. And depending on how traumatized, we really have to assess the situation. So depending on how traumatized these guys are, once we bring them in, we then determine that in many, I'll even say most cases, we have to say no to some great applicants because we need another dog in the home. And that's a perfect example, because there's only so much we can teach them, and they really have never had an opportunity to be a dog, and they really need to learn the cues of a dog. And as I had mentioned, I have not adopted a research Beagle, but I have my Poppy, who is a failed detection dog. So she was border patrol or whatever. She apparently failed because she was too friendly. So I like to joke with people and tell them she was letting all the drugs into Canada, but really I have no idea why. She just failed. She was too friendly. So she, but she, same thing. She has PTSD and anxiety, and she had to watch Lily, my Jack Russell Beagle. She had to watch Lily do things. She didn't necessarily know she was, I always kind of jokingly say, oh, she's new, even though she's 2 years old. She was 2 years old. And even still, she sort of looks to Lily for direction. And I did in fact foster Comet, who was a part of the rescue that with Astro and Bandit. And same with Comet, he would look at Poppy now and follow her to the door. Otherwise, he didn't even know to go out the door. He didn't know how to go in and out of the door. He would just stare at the door. So it's something we hate putting people off. We know that there's a lot of great applicants, but in some cases, we simply have to have these guys go into a home with another dog, because that's how they're going to figure things out and adjust a little bit quicker and feel more comfortable. So I'm just going to throw this out there, because there's a few people here that have not fostered with us but maybe are considering. And so if anyone has any questions, by all means, throw them in the chat or turn your camera on and raise your hand, whatever. I'm sure all of these experienced people can answer better than I can. Or maybe you have a question, but by all means. But in the meantime, hi, Carla. Thanks for joining. I was explaining to everyone earlier that we matched our Zoom links, and they were matching, but we're having trouble with Zoom duplicating a meeting. So we're going to have to look into that, because this is the second time we've had a technical difficulty. So sorry about that. And there he is, Bishop.
Yes, this is Bishop. I just wanted to say a couple of things. Bishop's our second lab dog that we adopted. The first was Hicks, and Hicks was in a lab and force bred for 4 years. And her rescue was an interesting one. A whistleblower basically called and said, hi, meet us at the back door. We have 3 dogs that are going to be put down and we want them saved. So she was part of the Tri-State 3. Anyway, when she came to us, never been on grass, the typical story. She didn't make a sound. And we had 2 other dogs, and she really learned a lot from them, which was great. Bish I brought from California, thanks to Lori. And he's an Beagle Beagle. Hopefully you all know about the mass breeding facility for lab dogs. And I wasn't prepared, and I've had 6 Beagle or Beagle mutts. So I was prepared for all the Beagleness. I wasn't prepared for how attached to me he was going to be, because when I went to California, I spent 4 days with him there first before I put him on a plane with me, and I brought him in the cabin. Thank goodness. I almost had a stroke waiting for it to land in Toronto. But anyway, um, he wouldn't let me out of his sight. Literally, I couldn't go to the bathroom. He would howl and throw himself at the wall. He didn't care about the other dogs initially. He didn't care about my husband. And I was petrified that was going to be my life, because once I adopt a dog, unless there's a serious aggression or harm issue, I don't give a dog back. I don't give up on them. So thanks to Lori, we made it through that initial phase. But he still has behavioral things from once in a while. If he's bored, if he's upset with us, he'll pee or poo in the house very, once in a while-ish. But he still has certain things. He's terrified of loud noises. If he hears them enough, he gets over it. But yeah, the one anecdote I wanted to share with you, however, sorry, I'm going to get a bit choked up, is our older Beagle did not know how to play at all. Didn't kind of would trying to howl and everything, just had no idea how to play. And even with our other dogs, he came along, another Beagle, and we have video of him teaching her how to play downward dog and play for the first time at 10 years old. So that was something. And now they're just being Beagles together, which is hilarious. Bishop lies with his two legs back of him like a frog, and our 10-year-old is now trying to lie that way. So I'm just reiterating, I guess, what Lori said about how they learn from each other, and they as much as we do, the other dogs in the house absolutely help with the rehabilitation.
Carla, it's interesting that you say that, because Carla, because you just made it on, Mandy was talking, and Mandy's dog Murphy is from Vigo as well. They're just outside of Calgary. And same thing, Mandy was just talking about how attached like he is to his mom. And so it's interesting. But again, that's the thing. They've never had a person. And so the first caregiver, is pretty special to them. It's really the person who saved them. And I like to say that too, because you guys are all amazing, and everyone who puts in an application is just amazing, because, this is probably where I will cry, but people always thank Mary and I for saving them, and thank you guys, but we couldn't do any of this without you guys. We wouldn't have a rescue if you guys didn't want to do this. So I can't tell you how grateful we are for you.
If I can just interject, all of you here that are fosters, you have my deepest admiration. I could never do it. I'd end up with 50 Beagles. I swear to God. So it's a really special person that fosters. God bless you.
It's hard.
I'm about there.
Can I interrupt for a second, if that's okay?
Of course.
I know, I know you've heard me say this before, Lori, and I'll keep it really, really brief, but I know everybody in here, and this is where I get choked up talking about Murphy, so I tend not to do it because I'm not a huge crier. But everybody always talks to me about, oh, you saved Murphy, you saved Murphy. No, Murphy saved me. And that is like, he has taught me to overcome anxiety in a way that I didn't think was possible. And so thank you guys again for giving him to me, because when I'm hearing everybody talk about, oh, you have to have another dog in the home usually and have a fenced yard, we don't have any of that. We've got 2 young kids. We live in a townhouse. We have never had a dog before. And yet somehow he's still ours. And he has done the world to save me. So thank you.
Thanks. They do save us, and they choose us too. We think we're so in control and we pick them, but I think they pick us.
Lori, can you see Nick giving me kisses right now?
Oh, I know. And really just free. So that's amazing.
Lori, I have a question for you. Ian and I always wonder, we've had Hicks now for almost 10 years. Do you think they have a memory of all the things they went through in the labs? Do you think that still haunts them? I know there are, I know, like, for example, there's, I've seen beagles that have nightmares, but those that don't, do you still think they remember?
I think there's something in the muscle, or not the, I was going to say muscle memory, but that's not applicable. I think there is something to it. And it was actually confirmed for me because I don't know if I can't remember who may or may not have been at Liz Murdoch's, one of her, she did a workshop with us, and then she did a regular town hall. She's an animal communicator, talking with the dogs, and she's a friend of mine too over the years. And she did years ago with us as a group, she did do a communication session with a dog that had just been, well, had been under research for a number of years. And she was telling us things about what the dog from the facility was telling her years later that nobody could possibly know. It was on the paperwork that only a few of us knew about. It was outstanding. She's a gifted person, but that did tell us that years later, that dog was sharing those memories with her. So that's kind of an incredible answer to that question. It was all there. So I mean, I think that for whatever capacity they have, that's where the PTSD and anxiety comes in, because those are memories that are there. And that's why the triggers may always be triggers.
Mm-hmm. On a lighter note, everyone, when you were talking about Poppy being a failed search dog, every time I land at the airport and there's a beagle in the luggage department, I think to myself, God damn, would it not be irony if I was, stuck by a beagle?
Right. I'm going to yell before we go. Let me see if I can I mean, my little Lily is a doll. She's adorable. One of them might come. Girls. Like, of course they won't come now, right? Usually they think I'm going to feed them, so they'll come because I'm in the kitchen talking. Girls, Pops, Lily. Oh, maybe. Who's coming? Oh, Poppy. Come here, Pops. Come on camera for a minute. You're the Pops. You're the little baby Pops. So here's my girl. That's my girl. Here she is. She looks a lot like Bishop, I think. Anyway, she's well, she's crazy. There you go. Anyway, there she is. I got a dog on the screen too. Anyway, thank you guys. Thank you for this. It was like a family sharing circle, as I say. I hope that the others that had to leave weren't, hopefully I get some feedback and that it was helpful. Of course, you all know that we're always here for you 24/7. Email, text, we're always here, and we're never gonna, shy away from asking for photos and videos on any given day. So please keep sharing. And
I have one more question.
Sure.
Are all beagles in labs purebred?
Well, from what we know, that's a tricky, I don't want to say that's a tricky, well, it is kind of a tricky question. From what we know, for the most part, they've been purebred beagles, but we have rescued hounds from testing. So they're bred as purebred beagles into testing, but there is a variety of other breeds. I mean, we know that beagles are the most used breed in testing globally, but there are other breeds we've rescued from testing. Red bone coonhound, different coonhounds, and breeds that are still the hound. And then of course we have seen other breed, like we've seen poodles and just a variety of breeds, but of course mostly purebred beagles is kind of my long answer to that simple question. Sorry, Connie.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you.
Guys. I'm going to just, yeah, well, thank you all. And just please remember that we're always here for you, and send your pictures and videos by all means at any time. And again, thank you guys so much for everything that you've done for us.
Okay, bye.
Bye.